What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Gameball with your host, Matson Montilla. Today, joining the show, we have Clemson pitcher Reed Garris. Reed, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate you for having me.
Well, I'm glad you're able to come on and do this. Before we get started, just give a little background about yourself, where you're from, growing up, playing baseball, just a little background.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and I've been playing baseball pretty much my entire life. Come from Mount Pleasant's a pretty developed area now. It didn't used to be, but my parents raised me to just be a good human, and my dad actually was going to play baseball at South Carolina, which is where both my parents ended up going to school. Yeah. But it's kind of weird that I'm here. But he ended up getting burnt out of baseball, and he made it clear from a young age to just like, hey, if you need a break, take a break, because it's taxing. It really is. My brother Calder actually plays at the Citadel. He's a freshman there, so it's cool.
Yeah. So you mentioned it's a little weird that you play at Clemson, considering you came from like a Gamecock household. Did that really even play a factor though in like where you were picking a college?
No, not really. I did have the opportunity to go there as well as come here, and I ended up choosing here. Mostly, I want to say Coach Lee, who's actually at South Carolina now, really influenced me to come here, and with the whole coaching change situation, I don't think many of us were sure if we were going to stick around or, see what was going on. But I'm really happy I did. The new coach is awesome. The whole new staff is great. Mm-hmm. We got some some guys some staff members who were here last year that are still here. So it's cool. But obviously my parents both being Gamecocks, I was a Gamecock fan my whole life. Up until I committed to Clemson, it definitely does feel a little weird, but not anymore. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, you're 2 years in now, so
yeah,
you're feeling that orange and purple now.
Oh yeah.
So again, you said South Carolina did have some interest in you, and I know you said your parents from South Carolina, but like, did the idea of being raised or growing up being a Gamecock fan, like, that didn't matter in recruitment, did it?
Not really. No, not at all. I mean, I will say it probably was my dream school, but they kind of came in a little bit too late. And, at that point I was already ready to go play. So, yeah. So I know you had offers from like other schools like the Citadel. Obviously that's where your brother plays now. Didn't know that entering that he was going to be going there. But how did Clemson separate themselves in recruitment? I just think, I never really, because of COVID and all that stuff, I never really got to take my official visit here and really see the campus. But I'd been up here enough for camps that I love the small town kind of vibes. Everything's so close. If you think about it, all the sports are right there on campus. So, you got soccer, you got women's lacrosse now, softball, baseball are right next to each other. It's all within that 1 mile radius.
Realm, yeah.
And ultimately, I would say it's the previous coaching staff is they did a really good job at recruiting and just making me feel like they really wanted me to come here.
Yeah.
So that ultimately was probably and who would turn down an opportunity to play at one of the best places in the country. Yeah. So.
Is that like important in recruitment to, like, obviously you have interest in every school that offers you because they obviously show that they kind of want you in a way, but it's important that like they constantly show interest in you throughout the process rather than just saying, here's an offer, we want you, and then move on.
Yeah, I definitely think you have to establish personal relationships with them, mm-hmm. and that's something that I took really seriously. I wanted to get to know the coaches and their kind of philosophies on different things, and it's definitely you definitely want those relationships, because if they were just like, hey, we're gonna give you this and then they don't talk to you for months, it's you don't really want to go there.
Yeah. So you mentioned a big thing with it is building those relationships like you just mentioned. With the departure of Coach Lee and his staff, how were you able to build relationships with the new staff and have a good relationship with them?
Well, I know some guys were actually here when the decision about Coach Lee was made, and I was actually up in Strasburg, Virginia, playing summer ball, so I didn't really get that. There was just a lot of uncertainty, and I remember when they hired Coach Bakich, within like the first maybe day, he reached out to me, a bunch of other guys, like, hey, how's summer ball going? I made it a point to try and get in contact with him as much as I could. The first phone call he ever made to me, I completely missed it. I didn't recognize the number, did not answer it. And then I was like, hey, what's Coach Bakich's number? And they were like, and so I was like, oh, I might want to call him back. But and then Coach Bellinger from Florida State, he's our pitching coach now. He's probably one of the best pitching coaches in the country, without a doubt in my mind. He's just the way he connects with his pitchers and the philosophies that he instills in us is something that I've never really had before, especially going from, because I'm a converted catcher. Mm-hmm. So, I caught pretty much my entire life. I pitched in high school a lot too, but last year I was mainly a catcher. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to pitch in college. And so the coaching staff really embracing the me wanting to help the team on the pitching side really is ultimately what kind of pulled me back towards this place. Yeah,
it definitely has shown that you've grown a lot as a pitcher. You're having a great start of the season so far. Obviously, you had that big game against Georgia State. But how has Coach Bellinger, he's like a wizard. He's teaching you all these things, how to be a great pitcher, all these philosophies. Is there something that, he's really done with you that has helped you tremendously? Because, again, like I mentioned, you're having not like a good year. You're having a great year so far.
Yeah, I think it's just the mindset that he coaches. He talks about when you go out on that mound, you're the baddest MFer on this planet. And, we have Coach Leggett actually back in the dugout now, and he talks about a Cuba, which is constantly unfazed by adversity. And, this past week, against College Charleston, I gave up back-to-back doubles. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things you gotta learn to flush. They coach mental game really well too. Take a breath, find your release, whether that's, picking up dirt, tossing it away, next pitch. And we always talk about one pitch at a time, just competing. That's probably the biggest thing. It's just that word, compete. Yeah. So
definitely. Because I played a little bit of baseball in high school, I was a pitcher as well. And one of the biggest things that I realized was how much of a mental game it is, right? Because you give up, a single, okay, a double, two doubles, that messes with you. So obviously, you mentioned you didn't grow up being a pitcher. So how, was it hard for you to almost develop that short-term memory?
Well, no, because thankfully I think I was able to do that because of catching. Catching, you also have to have a short memory because, if you say you don't block a ball, guy moves up a base, well, you know what? You got to move on because you're probably going to have to block another ball. And I remember last year during one of our scrimmages, before I kind of, understood hey, flush it. There was one scrimmage where there was balls going off my chest all the way over there. I was dropping balls that were easily should have been caught, and I was the game just speeds up on you. Mm-hmm. And if you really work on your mental game outside of baseball and while you're on the field and in training, you'll find that you can slow the game down really, really easily.
Yeah, it is very mental. I feel like growing up, everyone always says 90% mental, 10% what actually happens on the field. Because you're right, one small error, you don't want that messing with you, right? No matter where you are in the field.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad I really don't have to hit anymore, because hitting was brutal. I would beat myself up as a hitter. I'd swing and miss at a fastball down the middle, and I'd be like, "Oh, you suck. You're horrible." But yeah, it's definitely, and hitting is hard too. That's a good thing about being a pitcher. Like, I mean, if you throw strikes, more times likely than not, guys are going to get themselves out. Especially with all the stuff that pitchers are throwing nowadays. I mean, you got guys throwing 98-mile-an-hour sinkers. Like, that's just insane. Yeah. But
hard to read off the pitch. I mean, 60 feet and not much time to decide. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, you're good. Like I said, just like going back to what you were talking about with Coach Bellinger, it's just compete. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned like you were a catcher first year, and making that transition to pitcher, do you think being a catcher helps at all, because you are catching the pitches?
Yeah, I mean, we have a bunch of good catchers now, and from me previously being mainly a catcher, I know how important the pitcher-catcher relationship is. You got to trust the guy who's behind the plate, and the guy behind the plate has to trust you that you're going to do what you're out there to do, and that's ultimately throw strikes. And I think the biggest thing about that is just like I said, a moment ago, just trust. You got to trust that guy's got your back. He'll trust that you got his back, and that's what makes successful batteries.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to chemistry,
yep.
Right? Just having that good bond with everyone on the field.
So, of course.
Yeah. So when you are pitching, like how small is the, like, you can't miss by a lot, can you? You have a zone, obviously, but
yeah.
Does it ever get frustrating sometimes?
Sometimes. I mean, you can make a pitch that it's obviously it's hard to really gauge. Like, you can't see exactly where the ball crosses every single time. But I mean, you can make some good pitches, and you'll be like, "Oh, it's a strike," and then it's called a ball, and you're like, "Oh, well, all right, next pitch." Yeah. Which in the past, even when I was younger, like, I could not get over it. I could not get over it. Like, if I missed by that much, or even if I threw it right down the middle and he called it a ball, I would lose my mind. Now it's it's kind of it's like it's good.
Yeah.
So what?
You got to roll with the punches now.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm gonna throw it down the middle again. Like,
do you consider yourself like a strikeout pitcher? You pitch for soft contact. What's your style?
I would probably say a strikeout pitcher, just because I'm probably 75% fastball, and if I don't get a bunch of ground balls, not a big sinker guy. My fastball's got a little bit of carry to it, so if I'm in there, I'm trying to get a sky high fly ball, or try to get somebody to swing under the fastball.
What are your pitches? What pitches do you throw?
So I throw fastball, obviously, cutter / slider. Kind of just depends on the day whether or not it's going to be a cutter or a slider. I've been working on throwing a splitter. My circle change, I just couldn't consistently command it how I wanted it to. So now I'm trying to, since I backspin the ball so well, it's tough for me to learn a splitter, but I'm just experimenting with different grips and like catch play and trying to figure out if I can get that ball to just kind of have that sharp fade down and away to a left-hander.
Yeah. Do you constantly like work on your pitches and have them get better and better each time?
Yeah, it's a lot of it is just a grip thing too. I was reading an article the other day, and it was like the more pressure points that you have on a ball, obviously the more it's going to move. And so I just try to think about like whether I'm just playing catch, if I'm trying to work on that splitter or work on my cutter, all it is just pressure points on the ball. So whether or not it's, I'm holding the ball on the side and putting pressure on my middle finger to get that cut action, or if I'm throwing a splitter and I'm putting all the pressure here on this inside of my pointer finger, and the inside of my thumb to try and get that ball to have that fade down. So that's probably what I do most of the time.
So it's more about like where you grip it rather than anything else.
Yeah, I think an arm slot has a lot to do with it too. If you got low 3/4 arm slot, which I'm pretty much just straight over the top, and I also throw like a catcher too. So I haven't obviously hit against a guy who throws like that, but I would imagine as a hitter that's probably not very easy to pick up because the ball stays so tight to my body. But yeah, arm slot, grips have a lot to do with how your pitches move and how effective they are.
Yeah, so there's like an exact science to pitching almost. It's really hard, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I wouldn't say it's the hardest thing in the world to do, but if executing pitches is tough. You gotta have a mind this pitch mindset to execute a certain pitch.
Yeah.
So. And
as you spoke about earlier, I know you said you don't necessarily worry about missing your spots anymore, but when you miss your spots, like you don't have a big zone to pitch to, so it's like everything has to go right for that pitch to be successful.
Yeah, and it's crazy because you can have have one thing that's just not right, like the smallest little thing can set off a pitch, whether it's like you got a guy 0-2 and you're trying to go fastball up and you try to throw it as hard as you can, you end up throwing it right down the middle. Thankfully, guys who've got carry on their fastball more times likely than not get away with that, but it's risky, definitely risky.
So there's a lot of talented players on this pitching staff, like Joe Allen, like Lindley. Like, have they helped you throughout the way? Did you help them? Do they help you, like, to speak together about how to grow as a pitcher?
Yeah, so I've talked to Jackson. I talked to all the guys obviously, but Jackson and Joe have they've been really fun to watch this year. Nick Clayton too. He's been really good to watch. Our whole staff is, we might have had some struggles earlier on, and there's obviously going to be some struggles, down the road, but we're all just a bunch of dogs. We're just out there trying to compete. Like nothing phases any of us, and it's nice to know that our offense is really good as well. So it's nice to know you can go out there and if you do have your struggles that day, the offense is not only going to pick you up, the guy who's coming in behind you is going to pick you up. We're finally probably the healthiest we've been all season, and getting Ryan Ammons back is only going to help that. And I would probably Nick Clayton's actually one of the guys who basically taught me how to throw a cutter. He was like, hey, how do you throw this? How do you do that? Hey, just try throwing it like a fastball. I was like, okay, let me try that, and it's been really good ever since he and I had that conversation. And all the pitchers are really really good dudes, and we just have that dog mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Is that having that? You mentioned having that dog mentality, having guys to learn from, having that strong bond. Like, do you think that's going to propel this team to be even better in the future? Right now, Clemson's past couple of games, they're doing really, really well. Had that great season against Georgia State, but do you think it will help carry more momentum since you're all bonding together?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think a lot of things are starting to click, and we're kind of trying to starting to figure out, who what roles everybody's got, and it's like Coach Bakich and Coach Bellinger and all the coaches always say roles are always changing. Maybe one day one guy's got it and one guy doesn't. It is what it is. I've heard Coach Bellinger say it before too, like, we all the pitchers, we've got each other's backs, and the hitters obviously always have our backs too, but it's just like, if you got your C game stuff that day, you gotta think that it's better than that guy's A+ game stuff. So it comes back to mindset. Just if everybody's got that same mindset, we're gonna be pretty unstoppable.
So coming up right now is the Duke series, and this is kind of the start of that ACC play where it's gonna be a tough stretch because you're playing again really talented teams. Clemson's a talented team, but then you look at everyone else. They're in the ACC for a reason, right? They're talented teams.
Yep.
So how do you prepare for the ACC schedule?
I mean, you gotta treat it like another series. I mean, you just gotta go out there and compete. You know, I've said that word a lot, but you know that's really what we preach. You gotta go through your routines, prepare correctly, and make sure your body's good, and really just compete. Because I mean, every team we play from here on out is going to be really, really good, regardless of record, all that stuff. But it just preparation and competing. That's probably the only two things. And never get too high, never get too low, because you're always one pitch away, one swing away, from doing some really good things.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how do you prepare for, I guess, the week? Because you play a series on the weekend, and then you usually have that like weekday game where it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So like, do you watch film on the players that you're playing against? Do you practice? How do you go about it?
Yeah. So usually we'll have a little bit of film, before the game. Like when we get to the field, we'll have our scouting meeting, and we'll see a little bit of film. But usually it's just going over, what, especially like for the hitters, even pitchers are in the hitters meeting. But it's like, we'll look at the guy we're supposed to be facing that day. They'll go over, if he's got arm side run, induced vertical, velocity, what his main pitches are, to lefties and righties. And I know, we've been preparing with, machines. The machines have been throwing, left-handed nasty sliders we work on approach a lot too, during our SP, which is like other teams' batting practice, but we call it smash practice. But yeah, it's like I said, competing, execution. Even in training, it's we're always competing, regardless of what's
Yeah.
It could be just you might think it's just another day, but is it really?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a constant process of grinding, execution, competing.
So like the hitters, they have the machines that can throw some mile per hour and then the pitch, so you can kind of almost plan for the pitcher that you're going against. But as a pitcher, I mean, you don't have someone just stand there. You can swing like someone you're playing against.
Yeah, that's kind of where that mental game and visualization comes in. It's visualize. So we'll get the scouting report. We'll be like, we're not going to let this guy beat us.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're gonna try and get ahead, or we're gonna finish guys 0-2. It's just visualizing that throughout the week, regardless of who the opponent is. And obviously in the scouting meetings, we'll kind of have that idea of what we're gonna how we're gonna attack this team. It's visualizing it and really what's the word I'm looking for? Trying to think. Committing to that plan, is probably the best way for pitchers to prepare.
Do you study pitches that have been successful against those batters before? Like maybe one guy struggles against a slider, so then you work on throwing a slider against, like, how does that work?
Yeah, you can tell a lot by film. And we'll have some film sessions about that before the game. But usually Coach Bellinger's got, when we walk into that meeting, he's got his little PowerPoint pulled up, and he's like, "This is what we're gonna do. We're not gonna let this guy beat us. This guy, might not be able to hit this pitch. This guy doesn't like it inside." So you just have to know when that guy comes up, if we're going in, we're going to get it in there. We're not going to miss over the plate. If you miss out over the plate, you're probably going to get punished. It is what it is. You know, he might hit that ball like 450 feet. If you're trying to go fastball in, you leave it over the plate. So if you're going to miss, you want to miss where you're trying to miss.
Yeah.
So
okay. That makes sense. Now transitioning just to the coaching staff in general with Coach Bakich and Coach Bellinger. What has this like season been like with them there? How they just kind of rallied everyone together? You mentioned Coach Bakich he reached out to everyone after he got hired, which is really cool to hear that he cared about meeting the players that were there. But how has he implemented what he's done with this team?
Like I said, you know, I've pretty much talked about it, you know, this whole time. Just that competing aspect of things and kind of the tradition and standards of Clemson baseball. Like we have team standards that, you know, you got to follow. Everybody has player opportunities. Just kind of that mentality of nothing is ever going to be handed to you. You're going to have to work for it. So like in the fall, you know, we'd do, you know, 6:13 a.m. like lifts or mental toughness Wednesdays where, you know, we're running on the track. And, you know, it's some guys have never ran on the track before in their life, and it's kind of like, oh, man, this sucks. But, I mean, yeah, it might suck, but good, you know. It's that I think that's probably what helped us, you know, just learn to have that dog mentality and even just they always talk about, you know, leave the jersey in a better place than it was when you got it. And that kind of just sticks with all of us. And, you know, we're trying to do some very special things, this year and, you know, in the future. Yeah. So, kind of just that culture aspect is what they've brought back, you know, the culture, the standards, stuff for everybody to just kind of buy into. Yeah.
What do you mean by leave the jersey in a better place than you found it?
Just like build. So we're not out for individual accolades. We're trying to add as much value to the team as we can. And like in our intro video, when Coach Bakich says it's all going to be about, you know, adding value to an already, you know, very storied program. You know, Team 126, that's what we are, is... what
does that mean?
It's just, we're the 126th team in Clemson baseball history.
Okay.
So, we, you know, we are going to set the standards and the way for, you know, Team 127, Team 128, Team 129, so on. And it's just basically, you know, build the legacy of Clemson baseball.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. And you're right. That is a good mindset to have, just to keep building. Playing for Clemson, that's a big thing. That's a historic team to be playing for. I mean, do you ever think about like how crazy it is that, you know, you went from growing up playing, you know, T-ball, and then eventually, you know, you start playing, you know, travel ball and high school ball, to now you're playing for Clemson?
Yeah, it's surreal. Mm-hmm. Partially because I'm getting older, and that's, you know, that's a little weird. It feels like just yesterday I was 8 years old and running around in the backyard playing football with my brother. But yeah, it's crazy to think about. You know, you got all these guys, and the thing about, you know, our locker room is we got guys who are 18, we got guys who are like 25. You know, so it's like it's just like, and having those older guys to kind of, you know, hey, you know, enjoy it while you can, because it's, you know, it's going to end eventually. But yeah, that's
the craziest thing. I mean, whether it is baseball or basketball or football, talk to everyone. They always say just like, you know, it all just goes by in like a second, right? Like, is it hard for you to just remember to like stop and like slow down and just like savor that certain moment?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. It kind of just depends on the situation. Like if you're out there playing, obviously you're probably not going to sit there and take it in. But, you know, if like for these teams that have been really successful, you see all these guys, like if it, like the the in the MLB, the World Series, after a team wins it, they're all out there taking it in, like, holy crap, we're
world champs.
We're world champs, and so. Yeah, there's days in training where you kind of go out there and you're looking around. You're like, man, this place is gonna have 8,000 in it, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So what is it like playing in front of? I mean, obviously high school ball. You're not playing in front of. Maybe you're playing a couple hundred fans, right? Family, some friends. What is it like playing in front of all these crowds in college baseball?
It's it can be intimidating sometimes. Thankfully, my papa, he was able to, he was always talking about put the earphones in. So before I, go out there in one of those, even if it's a hostile environment like South Carolina, like, they say some mean stuff.
Really?
And you can't let it affect you, but he talks about put the earbuds in. So every time before I go out, I always, put the imaginary earbuds in because, that's something for a lot of younger guys too, like that I'd say to them, like, hey, just, you're going to hear some stuff. Even if it's your home fans, I mean, thankfully Clemson fans don't do that, but you see some people boo their own team, like Yankees fans. No offense to the Yankees fans, but
I'm a Yankees fan. I don't boo them though. I don't.
But yeah, I mean, it's awesome because like you can go out there and I probably the coolest moment that I've had so far in front of a lot of fans was this year at Ford Field when we played South Carolina, getting out of that bases loaded jam. That place erupted, and it was I get goosebumps thinking about it just now, like right now. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. It really is to know that you made the crowd do that.
Yeah.
The team made the crowd do that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you got them fired up, and then you could, once the inning ends, you can show that emotion too.
Yep.
I mean, how like recently the World Baseball Classic is happening. I don't know if you're following it, but all these players from different countries are playing together, bringing everyone together, these fans, and it's like, yeah, if you make a great, you get out of an inning, right? But let's say you get that second out on a strikeout, and the whole crowd erupts, like. The players still keep their composure until after the inning. Is that like hard for you to do, like to keep your composure in like an intense situation where you just had, yes, you made a really big strikeout and then you have to make another
yeah,
one?
it's consistency. You gotta, if you make a big pitch here and you can show that emotion. You can give like a yeah or something like that, but you gotta immediately come right back to just the center, and you just gotta be like, okay. This pitch right here. Mm-hmm. And if you're not able to do that, then you're amped up. You start, letting balls go high. You end up walking the next guy. Mm-hmm. So then you have to, it's all about just, like I said, never too high, never too low, right back to the middle.
Keeping that composure.
Mm-hmm. And that's all coming from like mental game. Just take a breath, visualize it, release, stuff like that.
So what do you think do you think the Ford Field crowd was the best like atmosphere you've been a part of playing baseball, I guess, in college?
I mean, I think last year at South Carolina was probably the best atmosphere I'd been around, because I mean, even though it's a majority of Gamecock fans, everybody was locked in on the game, and there was certain things in that game that happened where like you couldn't even hear yourself think. Like it's like that place was so loud when Seiler hit that home run off of Anglin, which I mean, like you couldn't hear yourself think. Granted, we ended up taking the win. It was awesome to just hear that place just dead silent.
You're a pin drop.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's arguably like one of the better feelings. Is when you get the crowd fired up, that's cool. But making a whole like your rival too.
You know,
silent.
10,000 strong in Founders Park goes completely silent is pretty cool.
Do you enjoy? So you enjoy maybe silencing a crowd a little bit more than making it get all fired up?
Yeah, I mean, I just like to go out there and compete, whether it's where I'm in front of 6,000 fans at Clemson or 14,000 at South Carolina. That's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but and just having those fans go completely silent is awesome.
So you mentioned South Carolina, like they say some ruthless things. Was there anything that like you've heard, whether that was to you or like a teammate, that was like, whoa, like that's a crazy thing?
Man, if I said some of the stuff I'd heard, I'd probably be in jail. Like really? I've heard some bad stuff. The most recent one, when we were at Floor Field, I heard, because my girlfriend goes to South Carolina, and I heard you don't deserve to be dating a Gamecock. I heard just so many different things that it's almost laughable now, because it's like, that's hilarious. Yeah. Like, I think that's awesome.
They had to do the research to really get that.
Oh yeah. If you have an Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you're done, because they will try to get in your head, and that's the biggest thing. Just have the earbuds in. I mean, you can hear it obviously, but
just cancel it out.
You just get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. It's all mental.
In one ear, out the other ear.
Yeah.
So
I feel like everything's circling back though to. I mean, I feel like we've said it after every question. It's just mental. You want to keep your composure, stay strong. Like, who cares what the outside noise is really saying? With that South Carolina series happening a couple weeks ago, obviously didn't get the results necessarily you wanted as a team, but again, still, like, it was like a new team, new coaching staff, and you're kind of over that hump, winning a lot of games. But being that series for a second time around, growing up almost on the opposite side of that series, and now playing for Clemson, I mean, what is this experience like?
Man, it's I've said I've repeated a lot of the same words, but I mean, it's awesome, because it's just like, that's the best rivalry in college baseball. It's the best rivalry in college football. It's the best rivalry in pretty much every sport. Yeah. Just because it's two fan bases and, teams who don't like each other. Like, we don't like South Carolina. They don't like us. It's just, it comes down to, competing again. You want to beat them. They want to beat you. You gotta just treat it like any other opponent, really. I mean, it's obviously there's a little bit more there, but you want to just treat it like another game. Yeah. Trust your preparation, trust your mental game stuff, and just never too high, never too low.
So your parents went to South Carolina. You mentioned your girlfriend goes to South Carolina. Are they like somewhat Clemson fans? Not that you pitch here?
Yeah, my parents were very eager to make the switch. Okay. Just having a kid go to Clemson is that's good enough to make the whole family switch. But as far as the girlfriend, it's she I think she's a fan of South Carolina in every sport except for baseball.
Okay. Well,
so
at least you have that, right?
Fair enough. I guess I won that one.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I guess football you didn't get the bragging rights, but it's
didn't get
baseball.
That one.
Yeah. What was there like a moment throughout your 2 years at Clemson that was like you would consider like your best moment, or like not necessarily like it has to be you pitching or you playing, just like what was like the best moment you had in college baseball so far?
I would probably say last year, kind of just not playing the whole year. And then, that last series against Boston College, just getting thrown into the fire because we had, Cooper Engel, he hurt his arm, so he wasn't playing. And then Jonathan French, pulling his hamstring. I was like the last catcher left, so they, threw me in, and, third game hitting my first career home run was pretty cool, especially since I'd only hit one home run in high school. I was never really a big home run hitter.
First series and you hit a home run.
Yeah, that was probably the coolest moment that I've had so far, just because of like, it was like, wow, I'm really on, the biggest stage, just living out my dream.
What was it like catching Jeff Gilbert?
Oh, I love that guy. Yeah. I grew up with Geoffrey, so he and I had a pretty tight relationship, and catching him was, I trusted him, he trusted me. He was probably one of my mentors last year, just because I knew him so well, and when I was still in high school, he'd come back, on like Christmas break or something, and he'd be like, "Hey, can you catch my bullpen?" And I'd go out there and catch his bullpen, and that's kind of where our relationship started. And now it's cool that he still reaches out, and he's not too big time, I guess, but yeah, it was awesome catching him, and really just playing with all those guys is awesome. Just having that band of 39 other brothers is really cool.
And you said you knew Jeff like growing up, like what, 10, 9 years old? How old were you when you, I guess, first kind of made that connection? I
want to say I was probably about 9 or 10 when I first started playing against Geoffrey. Unfortunately, when I was younger, I never played with him. It was always against him.
What was that like?
I think the first time I ever faced him, I was like 9 years old. He was like, he might have been like 11 or 12. I don't remember. He was throwing fuzz for that age, and I think he threw 3 straight fastballs right down the middle, and I just didn't take the bat off my shoulder because it was just like, but
you're 9 years old.
Yeah, he was always tough to compete against, that's for sure, because he's such a competitor, and he's always been like that.
Did you guys ever, like, after that game against Boston College, you like reflect and say, "Oh, I can't believe that just happened," right? It worked out perfectly. Yeah,
it was. I know he talked about in the interview he did after that game, talking about how proud he was of me and stuff like that. But I'll sit here and say, I was proud of him. Going from reliever to starter is not an easy thing to do, because your mindset kind of shifts a little bit. But him catching him in that game too of the Boston College series, just it's almost a little bit of a tearjerker, because it's kind of like, man, this is one of my brothers, and he's got my back, I got his back, and we're gonna dominate this together.
Very tail ending, right?
Yeah.
Tearjerker. Because you're right. I mean, growing up together, and then your freshman year. I mean, not many freshmen really get to see the field too often, and then last series really, and it's like, by the way, you're catching. Oh yeah, your boy Jeff Gilbert's pitching. I mean, it's crazy how that all worked out.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So you mentioned you hit a home run that in the BC series. I have to ask, what's a better feeling, hitting a home run or getting a strikeout? Like pitching a strikeout, not striking out.
Ooh, man, that's tough. I guess it would kind of depend on the situation. Mm-hmm. A home run probably beats that 95% of the time, but if you get a strikeout to, close out the game or get out of a bases loaded jam, that's probably no better feeling than that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd say home run wins most of the time, mm-hmm. but that strikeout's always...
Depends on the situation.
Yeah, always good to have.
I mean, hey, that strikeout, like you mentioned, floor field, that's probably one of the better strikeouts of anyone could have.
Yeah.
Getting out of it. And so, looking ahead to just like the end of the season, like what's the end goal for this team?
To win a national championship.
Okay.
Ultimately.
How can that get done?
Just stick to our preparation, our training, and just compete every single day, whether we're playing or not playing. Just take care of our bodies. That's a huge thing. And I I've learned that just, I have the back of probably like a 60-year-old, but, just you got to take care of your bodies and sleep is important. Just the little things is really important. And, just trusting your teammates. 'Cause I got a ton of good teammates, great teammates, and, we all have each other's back. And I think that's why we're going to ultimately achieve our goals.
Mm-hmm. And so being able to, like, if you were to have that experience of going to Omaha and being there, that's something that I'm assuming, like, I know people grow up watching the World Series, but I feel like you also grow up wanting to win that national championship.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I remember my brother and I would set up a lawn chair in the front yard and pretend we were in Omaha playing against each other when we were like 13, 14. I mean, so really not that long ago if you think about it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's every baseball player's dream is to, win a national championship, win the World Series, play professionally, stuff like that.
Yeah. What's your relationship like with your brother? Obviously, he's playing in the Citadel. Formed a good bond with him. What is it like though?
It's I'm probably harder on him than anybody else will ever be, just because he's younger than me. He's got probably 10 times as much potential as I do. And just to, make sure he keeps his head on straight and it's nice growing up having that, guy you can always compete with. And I think that's where, my competitiveness really came from. It's just always competing against him, whether it's, video games, football in the front yard, baseball in the front yard, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Just, we're both super competitive and we love each other.
Yeah.
So
you push each other, like you said,
Yep.
the most. I mean, you're his harshest critic. I'm sure he'd say the same thing about himself to you. Now he plays at the Citadel. What would it mean to eventually even play a game against him in college?
It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
It would definitely be awesome. We're probably gonna have to put Citadel on schedule here, for next season or maybe the season after that, because I think that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Just to see him in that other dugout and just be like, hey, my team's gonna whoop your team. Yeah. So, have bragging rights on that one.
And he's a catcher, right?
He is. Yeah, he's a catcher and a pitcher.
Okay.
So
maybe you guys imagine if you were pitching against him, that'd be a special moment.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I think we've only had one game where we've played against each other competitively, and I'm pretty sure I struck him out, but we were also 13. Well, so
I'm sure you'd say you striked him out and he probably had a home run against you.
Yeah. So, that's
we'll
just kind of take whoever's word for it you want, but it's awesome.
Yeah. I was doing a little research. I saw a video and it was you're 8 years old and you were in your kitchen or living room and you were throwing I think a tennis ball to him and he was pretending to be a catcher. And your dad I guess tweeted it out and said, hey, I love that they're just competing, having fun. If they broke a window, I wouldn't care because that bond was there. What's the support like from your parents to just say, obviously, they're not saying you can break every window in the house,
yeah.
but really caring about you wanted it, helping you achieve your dreams?
I mean, I don't even know where to start on that, just because the sacrifices that they've made to get Calder and I to travel tournaments, showcases, t-ball practice, stuff like that. And they're both very athletic and come from an athletic background, so and they're always constantly supporting us. I could have the worst game of my life and they're still gonna, hey, keep your head up, it's okay. Now, one thing I will say is they're not gonna sugarcoat it. If I was not good, they're gonna tell me I wasn't good, but they're also gonna, help me work on what I need to work on, and keep my head on straight, and never let me get too low or too high.
Yeah, keeping that even keel mentality.
Even keel.
So I guess my last question I really have for you is just like, what's like after your Clemson career? Obviously, there's a lot left, but like, what do you want to be remembered for after your Clemson career wraps up and in the future?
Probably just how willing I was to help younger guys, or not even older guys. I mean, if somebody's in a situation where they need somebody to help them, I want to be the guy that they can, ask for help or call. And as far as like, I guess legacy, just how competitive I am. I want people to know like how much winning means to me. And how much I, despise losing. I hate losing. I've never liked losing. I think if you like losing, then, you probably shouldn't be doing certain things. Mm-hmm. But just competitiveness and willingness to help others is, how can I serve others is really what I want to leave behind.